Well, my fellow goobers, welcome back to another episode of predicting the records for each division of the upcoming 2023-2024 NFL season. And as each day passes, we inch closer and closer to football, and I get more and more excited. If you watched any of the last episodes, I finished up doing the NFC, and today I'll be going ahead and starting off with the AFC, and I will be starting off with the AFC North. There's no real any kind of specific order to it at all. I just figured I'd start with them. I think I'm going to do the AFC West next, and then I'll probably be either out tomorrow or the day after that. But with that being said, let's not waste any time and hop right into it. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe and make sure to like it. Leave a comment down below if you think that I'm smart, if you think I'm stupid, if you got, I always like to talk ball. So if you have anything that you think that, I don't know, if you think I'm a casual and you need to fill me in, be my guest, please. But no, getting right into it, winning the AFC North, I have the Bengals. I have them going 13-4, and I'm very high on the Bengals, clearly. So far, if you've been paying attention, they tie the Niners for the most wins that I have so far with 13. But the Bengals, the only thing that I guess really scares me about them is if Mixon ends up facing some sort of suspension, because there's been the whole crap that's been going on with everything off the field. I doubt something's going to happen now at this point, so I'm not really too worried about it. Obviously, Joe Burrow, he went down in training camp just 2 weeks ago with a calf strain. I don't think that's going to be a huge issue going forward. Maybe for the first couple of weeks, he might just not have the same mobility. But I just think that this team, this is kind of not their last chance, but kind of the closing of their window. And some people might call me stupid because obviously how young with Burrow and Chase is, but T. Higgins is going to demand a huge contract just because of how good of a receiver he is. And Joe Burrow's obviously. Herbert just got paid, and he got paid right after Lamar did. And it seems like these quarterbacks keep upping themselves with who's the highest paid, because it was Hurts, then it was Lamar, then it was Herb. So I kind of figures that Burrow's going to be somewhere near that Herbert number. And he's worth every penny of it. But it's just when you pay that much money, it's hard to shill out that much money in a small amount of time, because they'd have to sign T to a big contract, and then next year, obviously, Jamar, he's probably going to, whatever jettisons of getting paid, Jamar's probably going to end up being somewhere near that same range. So I just think in terms of money-wise, to fully utilize all the young talent that's on their roster before they let any serious talent walk away, I think this is kind of their year, and I think they're going to finally put it all together. I think last year, Lyle Collins was really bad, and that kind of led to having some poor run game performances. At the beginning of the season, Burrow kind of struggled. Obviously, when Jamar Chase went down, their offense just wasn't explosive as it was, but their defense was really good. Their defense is going to continue to stay really good. Obviously, they lose Jesse Bates. I like Dax Hill a lot, though, so I think he's going to really be able to just step in. They lose Eli Apple, which, a lot of people hate on Eli Apple, but he's a solid second-string guy. So, but they got Chidobe Awuzie, who I think is very good. Cam Taylor-Britt, I think, is solid. TJ Turner the second, I think they just drafted him. I think he's Michigan, maybe. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's solid. They drafted Sidney Jones, who I like. I'm thinking Sidney Brown. Anyways, not the point. I just think that this team, really, their only area that scares me is running back, because I don't think Mixon is really that good in general as a back. But then if he does face a suspension, Samaje Perine isn't there anymore. I don't think Samaje Perine was that good, but he's a solid backup. They have Chase Brown and Travion Williams, and obviously Chris Evans. I don't really know anything about Chase Brown or Travion Williams, so I can't really speak on their depth there. But I just think that this is a good year where they put it all together. Last year, they kind of were slow out the gate. Obviously, the game against the Steelers, where I think Burrow threw 4 picks, and they had a tough game against the Cowboys. They lost early on. I just think they're going to clean that all up. They're going to come out the gate hot, and they're going to be a clear contender right off the rip. Just for reference, the 4 games I have them losing, I do have them losing week 1 to the Browns. I have them losing week 6 at Seattle. I have them losing week 11 in Baltimore, and then I have them losing week 12 against the Steelers. So they play the Niners and they play the Bills. So those are two other games that could obviously flip both ways. They do play the Chiefs week 17, but I just feel like in the regular season, I don't know. I like the Bengals a lot as a regular season team. Do I think that they're necessarily going to put it all together and go all the way to win a Super Bowl? I'm not really too sure about that, but I think this is going to be their best season on paper because they were really good 2 years ago, and it was kind of unexpected. They had a really hot streak towards the end. And then last year, they were expected to be really good, and they were slow at the gate. I think they're just going to be much better all around, and obviously barring any injuries. But moving on to the second team, I have the Baltimore Ravens coming in second place and going 10-7. I see a lot of people that are really high on the Ravens, and I'm really high on Lamar. I like Lamar a lot. I just don't really know if their weapons are that great. Their O-line is solid. Their defense is okay. Marlon Humphrey is really good. Marcus Williams is really good. Kyle Hamilton was solid. Rocky Sin is okay. Tyus Bowser's okay. They have Roquan Smith, who was a huge addition last year. He took their defense from being middle of the pack to almost being top 5. He's so good. So I think they'll be fine on defense. What I'm kind of worried of is bringing in a new scheme, and I can't remember their OC off the top of my head, but it's a very pass heavy scheme, and they're gonna be spreading the ball out more, and they're gonna be pushing the ball downfield more. And it's not that I don't think Lamar can't do that. I just more so I think Odell is an injury waiting to happen. He hasn't played football in over a year, and part of it's because obviously he tore his ACL. Odell was solid when he played for the Rams, but Odell he hasn't had that same kind of explosive burst that he's had in 3 or 4 years. So I just don't think he's gonna him holding up throughout an entire season without getting injured. I think is rough, and then also I just don't really think he has it in him anymore to be a serious number one option. I like Zay Flowers a lot, but expecting him to come in, especially as an undersized receiver, and dominate and take over wide receiver 1 role, that's a lot to expect out of him. And obviously it's possible. I mean, Garrett Wilson did it last year, Olave did it last year, London did it last year. And while I think all those guys are better receivers than Flowers were coming out the draft, I just still think it's kind of hard to predict that a rookie's going to go crazy. But if any of the rookie receivers were, it would be Flowers or it would be JSN. But they have Nelson Aguilar, who's mid. They have James Prochet, who's mid. They have Rashad Bateman, who when healthy is good. He just also hasn't been able to stay healthy. Mark Andrews obviously will be back. Him and Isaiah Likely are both really solid tight ends. So I don't know. It's going to be hard to kind of predict this team just because their offense is going to look so much different, and we haven't seen an offense that's going to look like this since Lamar's been there, because obviously under Greg Roman there was a ton of option, a ton of counter, and I'm sure they're still going to run some of that because Lamar's still good at that, and you obviously want to utilize his legs. But just in the passing game, my biggest fear is that they just don't have legit weapons to really want to air the ball out like that a ton. And in terms of running backs, they signed Melvin Gordon. They have Justice Hill. They have Gus Edwards, obviously, who are both very middle of the pack. They have J.K. Dobbins, who I feel really bad for because ever since he tore his ACL, he just lost all of explosivity, and he's okay. He's not really that great. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to be bad, obviously. I have them going 10-7, but I know some people think they're going to win the division. I know some people think they're going to a shoe-in to win 12 games, and they're going to come back and be dominant. And I don't know. I just think that they're going to kind of be above average, and the AFC is so tough that I can't see their offenses really competing with the Chiefs, with the Bengals, with the Jets, with the Bills, with the Dolphins. Those offenses are just so high-powered that while, like I said, I like Lamar, I just don't know if the weapons around them really can stand up to what all the other guys have. But just for reference real quick with the Ravens, the 7 games I have them losing week 2 to the Bengals, week 4 to the Browns, week 5 to the Steelers, week 6 to the Titans. That game's in Britain. I have them losing week 16 to the Niners, week 17 to the Dolphins, and then week 18 to the Steelers. So in the middle of the season, I do have them going on a 7-game win streak, but I don't know. I think that their ceiling could be 11 games they win, but I mean, they still kind of have a rough schedule. I mean, obviously they play the Bengals twice, they play the Browns twice, they play the Steelers twice, who are all solid teams. They play the Chargers then as well. They play the Jags. They play the Niners. They play the Dolphins. They play the Seahawks. I think that they have a really hard schedule, and seeing them winning really over 10 wins is going to be tough. I could see 11, but like anything past 11, I think is really, really tough to think about. But I'll go ahead and get right into the third team, who I have the Steelers coming in third. And I know there's going to be Browns fans that will be mad because a lot of people who are Browns fans or are just higher on the Browns, expect them to be really good this year. And I'll get to that when I get to the Browns. But with the Steelers, I have them going 9-8. Mike Tomlin is just going to keep consistently getting these winning record each season. And I think that they're just going to kind of be doomed to mediocrity in terms of that. Their defense is elite. They have a top 5 defense pretty easily. They drafted Keanu Benton, who I really, really liked a lot. I think he's going to fit right in perfectly. I think he's got like a Cameron Hayward kind of style. And I think having, obviously Cameron Hayward himself there to learn from, I think this can be huge for his progression. TJ Watt's going to be back and healthy. That's a huge thing for them. They did lose Bud Dupree, but I don't really think Bud Dupree is that good. They lost Cam Sutton, who Cam Sutton played well for them. They did draft Joey Porter Jr., which he hasn't looked that great in camp, and he's young. But I also think people kind of expected him to be somewhat of a project because he was really raw, and they just really like the physical talent. But the offense is really where the scarcities come in. They signed Allen Robinson. They have George Pickens, obviously, who I really like. Deontay Johnson is really good. His hands are hit or miss. Najee is okay. A lot of people are really high on him. I think he's more middle of the pack. He's not really that efficient, and a lot of people can look to the O-line for that, and I could agree with that. But Kenny Pickett's really where the scarcity comes in. I just think that Kenny Pickett's he's just such a low ceiling quarterback that last year he didn't play terribly when he came in, but I don't really know if he's gonna be that much better than how he played last year. And that's just obviously my personal thing. I just think that when they drafted him, they kind of knew they were getting a high floor guy, but a really low ceiling. I don't know if Kenny Pickett's ever going to throw for 30 touchdowns in a season. I don't think he's ever going to throw for 4,000 yards in a season, just because I don't think he doesn't have that crazy ceiling. Could the Steelers sneak in as a wild card spot, going 9-8 or 10-7, and Pickett throws for 22 touchdowns and has 3,600 yards? Yeah, I think that's pretty realistic, but I think that's kind of where his ceiling is. That's just my opinion, and I could be wrong. I'm more than willing to admit that, but I think just between Pickett just having a really low floor, and their O-line, still some big questions. Obviously, they drafted Broderick Jones, and I don't think Broderick Jones is bad, but he's just was supremely raw, and I think he kind of got overhyped with the draft. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people thought he was more day one ready, and I think that happened with almost all the tackles this past year. But I mean, he's an athletic freak, so obviously athleticism isn't going to be an issue, strength isn't going to be an issue, but technique will be. So there's a world where he gets killed from day one and they don't have a passing game at all because Pickett's always going to be under pressure, which is kind of how it was last year. But I don't know. I think just their defense is so good that they're going to be around 500 regardless. And then depending how Pickett plays will decide if they win 6 or 7 games or if they win 9 or 10 games. But I'll just go ahead and I'll quickly get into the last one then with the Browns. I have the Browns going 8-9, the only team without a winning record in this division. The Browns made a ton of really good additions this year, and it's kind of hard to predict them to do this bad because on paper I really like their defense. Zadarius Smith, who's kind of been somewhat of a locker room cancer the last 2 places he's been, they went out and they got him, and they got him for pretty cheap, and he's really good on field. I don't know if he's going to end up complaining off field again like he did with the Packers and then he did again with Minnesota. JOK and Anthony Walker Jr. are solid off-ball backers. They're both very small, though, but they went and got Dalvin Tomlinson, which I think was probably their biggest pickup in the offseason because their run defense was just so terrible last year. So you get a huge guy that's a great just run blocker eater, great against the run. I really like the pickup. It helps a lot because since they have smaller off-ball backers, it balances out that much more. I like their D-backs. I like Greg Newsome a lot. I like Denzel Ward a lot. Grant Delpit's solid. Juan Thornhill's solid. Obviously, Myles Garrett. I think is arguably the best edge in the NFL. I think I would have him as my number one. He's so great off the edge. Such a great combination of speed and power. And I don't think the defense is really going to be an issue like it was last year. My worries are, though, with the offense and with Deshaun Watson. When Watson came back last year, he looked like atrocious. Like it was like hard to watch. He looked so bad. He looked like Zach Wilson levels of bad last year. And while I think that he won't be that bad, I can almost guarantee that, because I know a big thing with his suspension is that he wasn't allowed to look at the playbooks. He wasn't allowed to do any sort of practicing at all. So he's coming in like completely blind. Knowing more, I think, will help, but there was no feel for it at all. And I get it because he didn't play for like 2 years almost. I just don't know how quickly that's going to come back to him, if it ever even does. So it's just really hard to project him to come back to the level he was before, because last year it was really bad. It was terrible. I know Browns fans know that. I know a lot of them are hopeful that he actually steps his game up because he's getting paid so much. But I love Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb's easily the best back in the league. And I think what's going to end up happening with a team like this is they're just going to end up having to run the ball a ton, because they're just not going to be able to pass. Because Watson in the passing game just looked really bad last year. And they have solid weapons. They have Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore. Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think, is a solid third guy. I really like Cedric Tillman. They got David Bell last year, and he really hasn't played much, but I liked him somewhat as a prospect. I like David Njoku. Their O-line is obviously great. Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, some of the best guards in the league. Jedrick Wills was really mediocre last year. Jack Conklin was solid. If the Browns are playing in the NFC, I think that like if you threw the Browns in like the NFC North, or even like the NFC South, to be honest with you, I think that they would easily be like a 12-win team, 13-win team almost. I just think that like the NFC or the AFC North specifically is such a hard division, and then they already have a super hard schedule on top of that. It's going to be really hard for them to win certain games. Starting off the season, I have them going 4-0, but I do have them losing to the Niners. I have them losing to the Colts. I have them losing to the Ravens. I have them losing to the Steelers. I have them losing to the Broncos. I have them losing to the Jags. I have them losing to the Texans later on. And I have them losing to the Jets and the Bengals. And people might think, oh, losing to the Texans, that's what he's talking about. Or losing to the Colts, what he's talking about. But I just think that the Browns team, with how Deshaun Watson played last year, you can really only go off of what you saw last year. I just think there's going to be games where they lose to teams that are just worse than them because their quarterback play is going to be so bad and they won't be able to really move the ball down the field. And you might say, well, they can run the ball with Nick Chubb, but if you go down in a game by some tragic plays and you're down by 2 touchdowns, you can't really just pound the rock consistently, especially if you're in the second half. So I know some people think I'm faded for that, but I don't know. I like the Browns on paper. Like I said, if they're playing the NFC, I think that would be a shoo-in for double-J wins easily, but the AFC is just so tough this year, and it's so stacked, and their division specifically is very stacked. So, but just to recap, winning the division, I have the Bengals at 13-4. Coming in second place, I have the Ravens at 10-7. Third place, I have the Steelers at 9-8, and then rounding out the AFC North, I have the Browns at 8-9. If you think I'm stupid, make sure to let me know down there. Other than that, though, I'd be appreciative if you like to subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, I respond to every single comment. So you can go ahead and go down there. And, make sure to let me know how dumb I am or how smart I am. But, as always, guys, thank you for watching. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.